generating new protected areas for the conservation of threatened taxa of Mozambique. For the new reserve parameters, the ecological planning unit generates the total area of final reserves to be 247,866 km squared. The total area of existing reserves is 163,300 km squared. The total area of newly added reserves is 84,566 km squared. The total number of unprotected species under these current parameters is 14. The country consists of 5,500 plant species, 220 mammals, and 690 birds, of which many are endemic. There is a large amount of fish resources contained within marine and coastal zones. These zones experience small and large-scale threats of overexploitation. Many neighboring landlocked countries depend on Mozambique's biodiversity and other natural resources, such as coal and natural gas, to sustain their global markets. Direct threats to Mozambique include habitat fragmentation, deforestation, and overexploitation in marine and coastal resources. Our first stop is the Lake Nyasa Reserve. This reserve focuses on generating income for local communities and getting rid of human-wildlife conflict and reducing bushfires. Our second stop is the Qarbon National Park. This park focuses on generating income through tourism. Our third stop is the Palmeiras and Cigans archipelagos. This reserve aims to protect mainly marine species. Our fourth stop is the Bazaruto Archipelago Reserve. This reserve focuses on protecting and managing its fragile ecosystem. Lastly, buckle up for the Maputo Elephant Game Reserve, which through its African Elephant Program focuses on protecting elephants as well as other forms of biodiversity. Our first stop is Lake Nyasa Reserve. This reserve focuses on generating income for local communities, getting rid of human-wildlife conflict, and reducing bush fires. Our next stop is the Coastal National Park, known as the Qarbon National Park. This park focuses on generating income through tourism. Our next stop is Palmeiras and Cigans archipelagos. This reserve aims to protect marine species. Next, we fly over the Bazaruto Archipelago. This archipelago reserve focuses on protecting and managing its fragile ecosystem. Lastly, we fly over to the Maputo Elephant Game Reserve. Through its African Elephant Program, focuses on protecting elephants and other forms. I hope you enjoyed that virtual tour. My question is, how well are the current protected areas of Mozambique ensuring the protection of its endangered and vulnerable taxa? For my conservation plan of Mozambique, I've chosen 18 threatened species classified under the IUCN Species Red list. These are some of the fish species under my conservation plan. As you can see, all of these 4 fish species are cichlids. These are more of my threatened species. As you can see, 2 of them are actually endangered. The first being the Vincent's bush squirrel and the second being the white-winged alethe. I've also included frog species. These are the rest of my threatened species for which how my results were generated. Data used were protected areas, conservation planning units, both ecological and conservation planning units, species distribution maps, planning unit tenure files, as well as Marxan. All 18 threatened species distribution maps were downloaded from IUCN DivaGIS was used to export the species distribution map files into Terset software as vector files. Terset was used to convert the species distribution maps vector files into raster format. For my ecological planning units, I downloaded the elevation mass data from divagis.org for Mozambique. This data was imported into Terset as a vector file and converted into raster format. The watershed option on Terset was used to prepare river basins. For the conservation planning units, Hexagon script was downloaded from genescent.com. The script, along with the admin shapefile, was used to generate suitable hexagons to cover the entire country. The protected areas and artificial surfaces was overlaid for the preparation of the land tenure maps. The land tenure maps that were prepared included planning unit tenure map and a modified tenure map. These were reclassed in Terset. Using Terset, the planning unit tenure map was reclassed as 0, assigned for all available lands. A value of 2 was assigned to the current protected networks and a value of 3 assigned to all agricultural and urban areas. The modified tenure map was reclassed as well. The background assigned a value of 0, all current protected areas assigned a value of 2, and all other locations were assigned a value of 3. Moving on to Marxan. Marxan is an algorithm decision support software to design and find good systems of sites through simulated annealing. Marxan operates according to the minimum set problem, whereby user-defined targets and costs are used, achieving a solution representing biodiversity features for the smallest possible cost. Marxan was used to see how much of Mozambique's 18 threatened species were being protected under the current reserve network. Marxan was also used to select new protected areas in order to meet the new target of trying to conserve these 18 threatened species. A conservation target of 50% and a species penalty factor of 10 was used for current and newly protected areas. The inputs for Marxan current reserves was the Mozambique planning units, a raster group of Mozambique's 18 threatened species, and the modified tenure map. The inputs for Marxan new reserves was the Mozambique planning units, the raster group of the Mozambique's 18 threatened species, and the planning unit tenure map. The best solution maps were selected for both current and new protected areas. These two images give an idea for what was done for the conservation planning units. According to this map, generated from Terset software, Mozambique has 47 protected areas. These were the results generated for the conservation planning units using Marxan software. Marxan shows the current parameters of the reserves as well as the species protection under current parameters. The total area of final reserves is 172,726 kilometers squared. The total area of existing reserves is 2,400,096 kilometers squared. The total number of unprotected species under the current parameters is 18, which is all of my threatened species. For the new reserve parameters, the ecological planning units generates the total area of final reserves to be 247,866 kilometers squared. The total area of existing reserves is 163,300 kilometers squared. The total area of newly added reserves is 84,566 kilometers squared. And lastly, the total number of unprotected species under current parameters is now 14, compared to the conservation planning units. This is far more, which means that the conservation planning units conserve more species than the ecological planning units. Therefore, the conservation planning unit is recommended over the ecological planning units. Ecological planning units. Under the ecological planning units, the total area of final reserves is 111,773 kilometers squared. The total area of existing reserves is 2,400,096 kilometers squared. The total number of unprotected species under current parameters is 18, which was the same as the conservation planning units. Why conserve these threatened species? Species like the Mozambique rain frog play vital roles in bioindicators, food webs, and medicine research. Fish like cichlids play vital roles in nutrient cycles. Birds like the white-winged alethe are dispersal agents in pollination and are biocontrols as well as bioindicators. Squirrels such as the Vincent bush squirrel are germination agents for seeds and fungal spores. Freshwater snails are involved in sediment nutrient recycling. Dragonflies are indicator species for environmental health. Current conservation efforts in Mozambique under the protected areas mentioned earlier focus too much on charismatic species. Conservation should focus on threatened species. According to the results generated by Marxan, the reserves generated by the conservation planning units are the better option, as only 4 species out of 18 are unprotected under its new parameters. Warning: lack of conservation for threatened species can lead to catastrophic events like extinction of other species affecting economy, agriculture, food security, global warming, and ultimately human and animal populations. The end. I sincerely hope Mozambique does something about their current unprotected threatened species. Who knows how much other unprotected threatened species are out there besides the ones I covered. No one likes catastrophes. Thank you for watching my conservation plan for Mozambique.